Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra.
Good evening and welcome to the Friday edition of Market Mantra, the program in which we give you a complete update on the economic news of the day. Well, my name is Nishit Kumar and with me is my co-anchor in Hindi, Sparsh Saxena.
नमस्कार, घड़ी का इशारा हो गया है शाम 6:30 का और अब वक्त है आपके फेवरेट शो मार्केट मंत्र का और आप सभी श्रोताओं का हम हृदय से स्वागत करते हैं। आधे घंटे के इस कार्यक्रम में हमेशा की तरह हम देश और दुनिया की चुनी हुई आर्थिक, कारोबारी और शेयर बाजार से संबंधित खबरें लेकर हाजिर हैं। हमारे साथ खबरों पर चर्चा करने के लिए स्टूडियो में आमंत्रित हैं आर्थिक मामलों के विशेषज्ञ कुमार बिजॉय। कुमार जी, मार्केट मंत्र में आपका स्वागत है।
धन्यवाद।
और सबसे पहले अंग्रेजी में हेडलाइंस के साथ हैं निशित कुमार।
The headlines: domestic stock indices hit all-time highs. Sensex closes at 82,365. Nifty settles at 25,235. Nominal GDP witnesses growth of 9.7%, says Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation data. And Jan Dhan facilitates more than 29 crore of bank accounts for women, becomes one of the largest platforms for women's empowerment, says Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
घरेलू बेंचमार्क सूचकांक रिकॉर्ड स्तर पर पहुंचे। सेंसेक्स 82,365 और निफ्टी 25,235 पर बंद हुआ। सांख्यिकी और कार्यक्रम कार्यान्वयन मंत्रालय के आंकड़ों के अनुसार सकल घरेलू उत्पाद में 9.7% की वृद्धि देखी गई। और प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने कहा, जनधन महिला सशक्तिकरण के लिए सबसे बड़ा मंच बना और 29 करोड़ से अधिक महिलाओं को बैंक खातों की सुविधा प्रदान करता है। और सबसे पहले नजर डाल लेते हैं हम आज के बाजार पर। सकारात्मक वैश्विक संकेतों के बीच भारतीय इक्विटी बेंचमार्क सूचकांक सेंसेक्स और निफ्टी इस महीने के आखिरी कारोबारी सत्र में बढ़त के साथ बंद हुए। दोनों सूचकांकों ने अपनी बढ़त जारी रखी और आज अंतर्दिवसीय कारोबार में रिकॉर्ड स्तर को छुआ। बॉम्बे स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का सेंसेक्स 0.28% यानी 231 अंक बढ़कर 82,365 पर बंद हुआ। वहीं नेशनल स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का निफ्टी भी 0.33% यानी 83 अंक बढ़कर 25,235 पर रहा। एनएसई में 140 कंपनियां अपने 52 सप्ताह के उच्चतम स्तर पर रहीं और वहीं 20 कंपनियों ने निचले स्तर को छुआ।
India's equity benchmark indices Sensex and the Nifty ended the month's last trading session with gains amid positive global cues. Both indices continue their upward march, reaching new high levels in the intraday trade today. Renewed foreign fund flows and the strong global market trends drive the domestic indices to record highs. At the closing bell, the Sensex, which is a pack of 30 companies, was up 231 points or 0.28% at 82,365. The Nifty 50 ended the session at 25,235 with 0.33% or 83 points gain. In the National Stock Exchange, 140 companies hit their 52-week high. 20 hit their 52 weeks low. And in the broader market at the Bombay Stock Exchange, the mid-cap and the small-cap indices gained more than 0.5% each. In the Sensex index, 22 out of 30 companies registered gains. The top gainers today were Bajaj Finance, which gained 2.03%, Mahindra & Mahindra added 1.75%, and NTPC increased 1.56%. Conversely, the major laggards were Tata Motors, which lost 0.92%, Reliance was down 0.69%, and Tech Mahindra shed 0.67%. In the sectoral indices at the Bombay Stock Exchange, all the 20 sectors traded in positive. Top gainers today were Realty, which got an uptick of 1.88%, Healthcare gained 1.41%, and utilities added 0.77%. The overall market breadth at the Bombay Stock Exchange was positive, as out of 4,045 companies, shares of 2,221 companies advanced, 1,709 declined, and 115 remain unchanged. Vijay, over the past 12 sessions now, including today, of course, today was the closing, the last session for this month, of course. We have seen an uptick, the markets closing in the green. Before that, prior to that, we had seen a lot of upheaval, mostly because of the VIX, which climbed to unprecedented highs in the recent times. So where do you see this uptick coming from in the last 12 sessions?
See, the last few weeks, which you said, especially was from the global clue where VIX was very high. But now, if you look into the recent movement in the market, 2-3 things are very clear. One is that there is a potential in the Indian economy, and that potential is slowly getting harvested. And that's why you will find out it is not a sectoral movement, rather it is cross-sector movement is there. And in the cross-sector movement, whether it is realty, whether it is banking sector, you find out here that very impressive movement has been there. Reason is very clear. Most of the government policies has started showing their result, and that result is giving the boost to the economy, and that market is reflecting. So we can say that this movement, this uptick will continue in near future. Yes, correction may be visible here and there, and that is good for the market.
How much do you see or do you feel that the Fed announcement, the much anticipated Fed announcement, which might happen anytime soon now, with people kind of expecting the cutting down, and obviously the trickle down effect on the Indian economy and the Indian markets, how much of that effect is factored in with this uptick in the last 12 sessions?
See, Fed, if you look upon, had planned for last so many months, but they had to defer it because of their statistics. Whether it is related to inflation front, whether it is related to labor front, that had been there. But now, again, another dimension is there. Since it has been obvious that mostly whole world is knowing they have to cut it, and their economy is also now giving a signal, yes, they are ready for the cut. What I personally feel, if it is related to market, certainly market is has digested to a greater extent this news. It has already been discounted, and whatever the little impact will be there, which will be visible and significant will be there, that will be also in the uptick only, because if they give cut, that gives the room for economy like India also to think of. Our policymakers like RBI can think in that direction, and that will be pumping little more money, more capital formation, and that will be another booster to the economy. Because if you compare the policy rate with the peer groups, including the advanced economy, we are actually on a very higher side. That is what we require. It is mostly needed downward revision. It is essentially required in the economy.
कुमार जी, हमने बीते दिनों में देखा कि काफी वोलेटाइल सेशंस रहे, और आज ऑफ कोर्स निफ्टी ने और सेंसेक्स दोनों ने लगभग ऑल टाइम हाई टच किए हैं अपने। और हम पिछले कुछ महीनों से देख रहे हैं कि हर महीने एसआईपी का जो पैसा है वो तकरीबन 20,000 करोड़ से अधिक का पैसा निवेश किया जा रहा है। तो इसको आप कैसे देखते हैं? क्या रिटेल निवेशक जो है, और स्पेशली जो हमारे जो डोमेस्टिक इंस्टीट्यूशनल इन्वेस्टर्स हैं, क्या उनका अब बोलबाला ज्यादा है मार्केट में? क्योंकि अब एफआईआईज का हम लगातार देख रहे हैं, निवेश बहुत अधिकतर निवेश हर महीने में नहीं हो रहा, बट उसके बावजूद भी मार्केट्स ऊपर ऊपर जाए जा रहे हैं। इसको आप कैसे देखते हैं?
आज जो भी जैसे मैं बता रहा था कि इंडियन इकोनॉमी में बहुत ज्यादा विश्वास जगह है, बहुत पोटेंशियल है। तो आप गौर करके देखेंगे कि हमारे यहाँ जो निवेशक हैं, और खास करके जो खुदरा निवेशक, जो रिटेल जो हैं, उनकी संख्या लगातार बढ़ते चली जा रही है। यंग जनरेशन वाले जो हैं उनकी संख्या बढ़ रही है, और पॉपुलेशन के मामले में नंबर 1 है। तो जो दो तरीके से मैं देखता हूं, कॉन्फिडेंस के कारण इन्वेस्टर का बेस बड़ा हो रहा है, और दूसरा पोटेंशियल भी इंक्रीज कर रहा है इन्वेस्टर का भी इन्वेस्ट करने का, बिकॉज दिस इज अ न्यू जनरेशन इन्वेस्टर जिनकी संख्या बढ़ी है। अगर आप कुछ दिनों पहले ही एनएससी वगैरह ने अपना जो डेटा जारी किया था, और वो बताया था कैसे 32% से ज्यादा 40% के आसपास का जो इन्वेस्टर है वो 32 के एज से कम का है। ये इंडिकेट करता है कि हमारा बेस बड़ा हो रहा है। एक और इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट है कि अभी जब कंपेयर करते हैं तो कुछ साल पहले के मार्केट से कंपेयर करते हैं, जिसमें कई तरह के थ्योरेटिकली भी हम क्लासरूम में डिस्कस करते थे, प्रैक्टिकली भी देखते थे, जिसमें मंथ एंड इफेक्ट, दिसंबर इफेक्ट, कई तरह के इफेक्ट होते थे। और वो इफेक्ट इसलिए होता था क्योंकि फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर मेनली प्राइमरली इन्वेस्टर की तरह रिफ्लेक्ट होते थे, उनके मूवमेंट से हमारे मार्केट का मूवमेंट होता था। अब उनका मूवमेंट एक एक्सक्लूसिव मूवमेंट नहीं है, क्योंकि हमारे इंटरनल इन्वेस्टर एंड स्मॉल इन्वेस्टर भी एक मेगा पोर्शन परफॉर्म कर रहे हैं। इसलिए मार्केट में स्टेबिलिटी है, मार्केट रिस्पॉन्ड करता है किसी भी ग्लोबल हैपनिंग को, करेक्ट करता है और फिर आगे बढ़ जाता है। अभी आपके ही न्यूज में कि 140 आउट कंपनी अपने 52 वीक्स हाई पे हैं निफ्टी एनएससी के रिजल्ट में, ये इंडिकेट करता है कि वो न्यू हाईज की तरफ आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। 30 में से 22 अगर पॉजिटिव मूवमेंट इंडिकेट कर रहे हैं तो ये अपने आप में एक बहुत स्ट्रांग सिग्नल दे रहा है। और ये जो बीच बीच का करेक्शन है ना, इस करेक्शन से घबराने की बात नहीं है, ये जरूरी है, ये मार्केट को स्ट्रेंथ प्रोवाइड करता है।
आपने कहा घबराने की बात नहीं है, और आम निवेशक के मन में एक सवाल सबसे ज्यादा बना हुआ है कि जब वो जियोपॉलिटिकल टेंशन देख रहा है हर तरफ, तो उस माहौल में वो, और स्पेशली अब जब मार्केट्स ऑल टाइम हाई पे है, तो इस समय पे वो निवेश करता हुआ थोड़ा सा जो है घबरा रहा है, क्योंकि वो सोच रहा है कि या तो अब ये करेक्शन का टाइम है इसके बाद, या फिर यहां से और रैली कंटिन्यू होगी। इस पे आपका क्या टेक है?
देखिए, ये तो कंप्लीट एक गेस ही रहेगा लेकिन फिर भी अगर मैं थोड़ा क्लू लूं और वैलिड क्लू लूं, जैसे फिच के कुछ कमेंट आए हैं, सिर्फ रेटिंग पे ही नहीं, उनके अपने इंटरनल ऑब्जर्वेशंस हैं, और उस ऑब्जर्वेशन में अगर आप देखेंगे जो उन्होंने स्टेटस को मेंटेन किया है, इसके पीछे दो कारण हैं। एक जो प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टमेंट है इंडिया का, वो अभी उस सेंटिमेंट में नहीं आया है जिस सेंटिमेंट की उम्मीद है, और जो जियोपॉलिटिकल सिचुएशन है, जो टेंशन रन कर रहा है, जो डायरेक्टली इनडायरेक्टली इम्पैक्ट पूरे वर्ल्ड को कर रहा है और इंडिया को भी इफेक्ट पड़ रहा है, अगर वो इम्प्रूव हो जाए तो हमारे पास रियल रैली की पॉसिबिलिटी है, क्योंकि हमारा इंटरनल फंडामेंटल स्ट्रेंथ जो इकोनॉमी की है, वो फाउंडेशन बहुत स्ट्रांग हो रहा है।
जी विजय, you were just talking about rather Sparsh, you were talking about the FII is kind of taking a flight in the past few months from the Indian markets, but now with the Fed kind of giving that dovish stance, which would come anytime soon, as we discussed earlier, do you see a reverse flight happening with the FIIs and the FPIs coming in droves in the Indian market?
Sure, certainly. This is going to be there, because ultimately, see, what any investor, whether it is foreign investor or Indian investor or any investor, they look the real return. How much they are getting the real return. And if real return right now, in my opinion, India is promising a very nice real return. And that real return is the point of attraction for global investors. And they will certainly be coming. Since Fed cut is expected, the moment cut will be there, the visible real return in India will be clearly significant, and that significant return will be one of the point of attraction for Indian market. And not only that, that is what the point of carry trade and arbitrage concept, which the moment you have seen a few weeks back that Japan, the moment they decided to have little uptick in the rate, and finally whole world responded little in a nervous way. The reason was very simple, that it had to be impact on those kind of a carry movement. So similarly, since India is there, but I always look into, even if corresponding rate cut will be there in India, and then also that real gain, real return will be maintained in Indian market.
Vijay, talking of the geopolitical situation, the scenario currently that we are seeing, of course, the Ukraine-Russia conflict, it's an old story now. But with the Middle East crisis, especially, with escalation in the recent times, just recently, today rather, we heard somewhere that the Houthis, they are targeting the ships in the Red Sea. And also the Israel, Hamas and all that kind of thing happening all over. How much of an impact do you see? Besides, of course, we have already discussed the Fed now. Now, talking of the geopolitical thing, how much of an impact do you see that?
This is what I say, that yes, situation has little aggravated, And in that situation, see, this is not a new. If you look into this Israel and Hamas case, you'll find out it is, I think, October onward. If you continue count, it is more or less 10 months has been through.
Yeah, 7th October.
7th October was from one side, and then followed by within 3 days, it a reversal took place. So more or less, maximum it has been digested. The only thing is even Iran and other countries.
Yeah, I was actually talking about that. With more countries, more countries are getting.
So undoubtedly, this is a kind of a great concern. It is a situation, but I am sure that so far as 2 reasons, India is now in comparatively strong position, and second is degree of correlation with these economies. And degree of correlation is not that high that India will have severe impact. Impact will be there. Undoubtedly, you are not untouchable now. So you have to have that impact. It is not a kind of, you can say, uncoupled one. It will be having that impact. But the impact which directly connected economy will be having, that kind of impact will not be there. Second, India is very rapidly looking into a substitution impact with this kind of a global economy. Like substitution from the domestic consumption through domestic production. That is very, very important. Whether it is related to defense, related to pharmaceutical, related to equipment, you'll find out these are going to be game changer in coming days. Even in energy sector, look into that. The way India is establishing its capacity, that is remarkable, and that is making you independent. And one more final, aspect I'll touch here, that not only this, even the currency in which we are trading, and the more and more we are looking into bilateral currencies and introducing Indian rupee as a part of payment, that is going to insulate us to a greater extent. The way we used to get impacted because of a little movement, I think we are insulated now comparatively better.
Right. One important, very important rather cog in the world economic wheel, if you may say that, China. China is slowing down like anything. What impact do you see of that happening?
Even if you look into recent where China has got a lot of resentment related to all those happenings. China is really, a good number of indicators is shrinking. So China is having trouble. What I personally looked at, we can look into an opportunity, especially in the global market, where we can, whatever the gap is getting created in 2 ways, placing our own product in the global market, and if any of that organization, like I'll tell you, more than 60% of Japanese operating in China are not interested in continuing investment in China. Now question is, are we able to divert them to India? So it is, opportunity is there, but we have to open the door to grab that opportunity. And I am sure policymakers must be monitoring and watching this opportunity and trying their best to do that. So we should be little looking positively about the happenings of China with Indian perspective.
कुमार जी, चर्चा को मैं वापस एक बार रिटेल इन्वेस्टर की ओर लेके आना चाहता हूं. अभी आपने बात करी कि रिटेल पार्टिसिपेशन बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ता जा रहा है. तो हमने अधिकतर ये देखा, अगर बीते महीने में बात करें, कुछ दिन स्पेसिफिकली अगर बात करें, तो इतने बड़े फॉल आए, बट लेकिन वो सडनली नेक्स्ट डे रिकवर हुए. और ऐसा ही अभी कुछ दिन पहले हमने फिर देखा. ये सवाल मेरा इसलिए है कि जो रिटेल इन्वेस्टर, आम निवेशक जो पिछले साल 2 साल से जुड़े हैं मार्केट्स में, उनको कितना जरूरी है, क्योंकि उन्होंने अभी तक वो बेयर फेज देखा नहीं, ये कितना जरूरी है कि उनको ये बात मालूम पड़े कि ऐसे मार्केट्स में कैसे ट्रेड करना है. बिकॉज अगर फॉल आते ही आप तुरंत खरीदने जाते हैं, तो जब बेयर मार्केट का फेज आता है, वो लंबा फेज, तो उसको कैसे, मतलब उसके लिए कैसे प्रिपेयर्ड रहे?
देखिए, अगर जो रिटेल इन्वेस्टर के लिए तो ऑलवेज एडवाइस है कि वो एक म्यूचुअल फंड का रूट अडॉप्ट करें, वो ज्यादा एडवाइजेबल है, उससे सेफ होता है. अगर आप, और अदरवाइज भी, अगर आप मार्केट को ऑन ए कंटिन्यूअस बेसिस वॉच नहीं कर सकते, आप मेंटली अपने वर्क में बहुत ऑनेस्टली लगे रहना चाहते हैं, और तो आपके लिए पैसिव इन्वेस्टर रहना ज्यादा अच्छा है रादर देन एक्टिव इन्वेस्टर. तो अगर पैसिव इन्वेस्टर होते हैं, तो आपका सिलेक्शन के वक्त जो भी स्क्रिप्ट आप कर रहे हैं, अगर आपके पास सिलेक्शन के स्किल्स नहीं है, या एडवाइस अवेलेबल नहीं है, एक्सपर्ट एडवाइस अवेलेबल नहीं है, एफोर्ड आप नहीं कर सकते हैं, तब तो आप SIP या म्यूचुअल फंड के अदर इंस्ट्रूमेंट के रूट पे लें। अगर आप इन सबको अफोर्ड कर सकते हैं और थोड़ा आप नॉलेज और इंटरेस्ट दोनों रखते हैं, तब तो भी आप वैसे इन्वेस्टमेंट में जाएं जिस इन्वेस्टमेंट में आप बाय होल्ड एंड फॉरगेट टाइप की स्ट्रेटजी अगर रख रहे हैं तो ज्यादा अच्छा रहेगा।
माने कि लंबी अवधि
के लिए जी। अगर छोटी अवधि के लिए रखते हैं तो आपको सजग रहना पड़ेगा, सचेत रहना पड़ेगा और किसी भी तरह के एडवर्स मूवमेंट के लिए तैयार भी रहना पड़ेगा
जी। और आगे बढ़ने से पहले हम अपनी अगली स्टोरी पे नजर डाल लेते हैं। विदेशी मुद्रा बाजार में आज $1 के मुकाबले रुपया लगभग बिना किसी बदलाव के साथ ₹83.87 के स्तर पर बंद हुआ। उधर दुनिया की 6 प्रमुख मुद्राओं की तुलना में डॉलर की स्थिति दर्शाने वाला सूचकांक अंतर्दिवसीय कारोबार के दौरान 101.40 के स्तर पर था।
And moving on to some other story, the National Statistical Office NSO of the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation released the quarterly estimates of the Gross Domestic Product GDP for the April-June 2024 quarter today. According to the data, real GDP has been estimated to grow by 6.7% in the first quarter of the financial year 2024-25, with a growth rate of 8.2% in the first quarter of the last financial year 2023-24. Further, the nominal GDP has witnessed a growth rate of 9.7% in the first quarter of this financial year 2024-25, which was 8.5% in the corresponding period. On the gross value addition GVA, the data reports that real GVA has grown by 6.8% of April-June quarter of the 2024 financial year. Moreover, this GVA growth in the first quarter of financial year 2024-25 has been driven by significant growth in the secondary sector, that is by 8.4%, comprising of construction at 10.5%, electricity, gas, water supply and other utility services at 10.4%, and manufacturing at 7%. The data further reads that the nominal GVA growth rate has been estimated at 9.8%. Private final consumption expenditure and gross fixed capital formation at constant prices have witnessed growth rates of 7.4% and 7.5% respectively, and net taxes at current prices has observed the growth rate of 8% in the April-June quarter of the current fiscal. Bijoy, how do you read of this latest data released by the NSO?
I will say that these are all happy data. The moment we have got this kind of improvement, and especially you look upon when we talk about construction, when we talk about all these utilities, electricity, gas and all those.
Manufacturing.
Yes. These all are manufacturing, to still it is directly, serving to the consumption.
Right.
But these are the very nice indicator, and I treat them as a lead indicator. Mm-hmm. And if lead indicator has these kind of impressive things, so what we were talking right now, few minutes back, there is a potential. I think signal of potential is also visible here. So I look at statistics into this way, and it is really, compared to previous period, it has been a very improved data.
Right. That's a very interesting way of how you put it, the lead indicator, because mostly what we get is the lagging indicator, and that's mostly of very little use, if we may say so. And obviously the data thrown up today by the NSO, it shows immense promise in the coming days.
Correct.
And of course the data, we heard the budget, the Honorable Finance Minister saying all the data which has to be achieved in the coming financial. So these, as you mentioned, the lead data, the lead indicators rather, they are well on way to achieving those targets, if not more.
See, one important further indicator which has been there in the last week, and that was, credit offtake has also increased like anything. And right. That is, 17% growth has been there in credit offtake, and inflation has come down. So these two figures, if you, club this, it is going to be a very happy future expectation.
जी, और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाजारों पर एक बार नजर डाल लेते हैं। एशियाई शेयर बाजारों में आज बढ़त का रुख देखने को मिला। पांचों प्रमुख सूचकांक आज लाभ के साथ बंद हुए। हांगकांग का हैंगसेंग 1.13%, सिंगापुर का स्ट्रेट्स टाइम्स सूचकांक 1.12%, जापान का निकेई 0.74%, चीन का शंघाई कॉम्पोजिट इंडेक्स 0.67% और दक्षिण कोरिया का कॉस्पी 0.45% की बढ़त के साथ बंद हुआ। यूरोपीय बाजार का रुख करें तो अंतिम समाचार मिलने तक तीनों प्रमुख सूचकांक मजबूती के साथ कारोबार कर रहे थे। फ्रांस के कैक में 0.47% की तेजी देखी गई। लंदन का फुत्सी 0.33% ऊपर दिखाई दिया और जर्मनी का डैक्स 0.17% के लाभ के साथ कारोबार कर रहा था।
And moving on to the US markets, the US stocks displayed mixed trend yesterday following release of robust US economic data. The Dow Jones Industrial Average notched a record high close, up by 0.59%, while the Nasdaq Composite declined by 0.23%, and the S&P 500 ended flat. And moving on to some other stories, Prime Minister Narendra Modi today said that India's fintech sector has played a significant role in democratizing the financial services, making loans, credit cards, investments, and insurance accessible. Fintech has made access to credit easy and inclusive, transforming the technological front of the country and making widespread social impact by closing the gap between the urban and the rural India, said Prime Minister in his address at the Global Fintech Fest 2024. Highlighting the fintech revolution's achievements, the Prime Minister added that fintech industry has received a record investment of more than $31 billion, witnessing growth of 500% in the last 10 years. He said digital transactions have diminished the menace of parallel economy and has increased transparency in the banking system. The Prime Minister hailed the trinity of Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile, saying that these have resulted in India processing almost all of the world's real-time digital transactions. He said that the Jan Dhan has become one of the largest platforms for women's empowerment, facilitating opening of 29 crore bank accounts for women. Vijay, just the other day we were discussing about observing the 10th anniversary of Jan Dhan accounts.
This is indeed been 28th.
Yes. This has indeed been a game changer. And now with Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile, that is JAM. The acronym is JAM.
Yes.
It's really been revolutionizing, isn't it?
Yes.
And of course, one of the major kind of, if we may say, impact has been the DBT, the direct benefit transfer. The leakage and the pilferage has been almost cut to zero.
Yes, to some extent, yes, very right. And not only one more dimension is there, it is having somewhere around more than 2 trillion rupees into these collective accounts of 52 crores plus Jan Dhan accounts.
Right.
2 trillion rupees is lying there, which is normally called as no-frill accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Huge amount. Small amount is actually, drop is making the, sea that is visible through this Jan Dhan account.
Right. So the Honorable Prime Minister was just lauding and appreciating and making a point about the fintech. But what we do believe that fintech still is in a complete, if not complete, but a relatively nascent stage in India.
Very true.
And it has to grow more and more in the coming days. And now moving on to crude now. The oil prices steady today, on track for a weekly gain amid West Asia disruptions raising supply concern in the global crude market. Brent crude was trading 0.15% down to trade at $79.82 per barrel. The US WTI was also trading 0.08% down at $75.85 per barrel when reports last came in.
और सोने और चांदी पर भी एक बार नजर डाल लेते हैं। सराफा बाजार में सोना आज गिरावट के साथ कारोबार कर रहा था। शाम 6:40 पर भारत में 24 कैरेट सोना 0.21% गिरकर 72,230 रुपए प्रति 10 ग्राम के स्तर पर था। वहीं चांदी 0.41% गिरकर 85,050 रुपए प्रति किलोग्राम के स्तर पर दर्ज की गई। मल्टी कमोडिटी एक्सचेंज में अंतिम समाचार मिलने तक सोना और चांदी के दाम कारोबार के दौरान नीचे चल रहे थे। अक्टूबर में आपूर्ति किए जाने वाले सोने का मूल्य 0.31% घटकर 71,975 रुपए प्रति 10 ग्राम के स्तर पर चल रहा था। वहीं सितंबर में आपूर्ति की जाने वाली चांदी की कीमत 0.58% घटकर 84,500 रुपए प्रति किलोग्राम पर चल रही थी। और कुमार जी, कार्यक्रम को हमें यहीं समाप्त करना पड़ेगा। आप आए और सवालों के जवाब दिए, उसके लिए आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और अंग्रेजी में हेडलाइंस के साथ हैं निशित कुमार।
Thank you so very much, Vijay, for having joined us. And before we close, a reminder of the headlines once again. Domestic stock indices hit all-time highs. Sensex closes at 82,365. Nifty settles at 25,235. Nominal GDP witnesses growth of 9.7%, says Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation data. And Jan Dhan facilitates more than 29 crore of bank accounts for women, becomes one of the largest platforms for women's empowerment, says Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And that's it in the City of Market Mantra. For now, goodbye.
Market Mantra.